Hey, everybody. So thank you for joining along on this wonderful Tuesday evening. So much gratitude, guys, for you taking the time out of your day to join me this evening to share a conversation and hopefully add a little bit of value to you guys. So thank you so much for everybody who always follows along the show. You guys are the lifeblood, again, like I say, of what we do here. So thank you again, always. So even like David's already coming. So thank you, David. Awesome. He's already following along on the show. So, guys, let's get all the particular information out of the way as we always do at the beginning of every show. If this is your first time watching us and you picked an episode to join us for your first one, if it is, episode number 102. So thank you if you're watching us for your first time. We're streaming live on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Do us a favor if you're watching there, hit the like and subscribe button. We're always trying to build our viewership on YouTube. So do us a favor, again, hit the like and subscribe button, and then also hit the notification bell. What that does is it'll send you alerts whenever we do schedule new live videos, whenever we do go live, and whenever we do drop new content on the channel. So if you're watching us on YouTube, drop it down in the comments. We always appreciate if you're watching there. Thank you so much, guys. You rock. So, and if you're watching us on just about every other platform, we are streaming live on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. We do a little bit different on Instagram. It is the one-sided version of me, so you get the behind-the-scenes sort of deal that not everybody gets to see on Instagram. So if you're watching on Instagram, it is at MFSB Live on Instagram. If you're watching, drop it down in the comments. As always, thank you so much, guys, for watching on Instagram, for the support. Love you to pieces. And, of course, if you're streaming on every other platform, check us out on Facebook. Do us a favor, hit the like button on our page there at MFSB Live on Facebook. You can check me out on my personal page now. I am streaming live there. So thank you if you follow along on my personal page. And, of course, we are streaming on Twitch and on Twitter, both at MFSB Live. If you're watching on Twitter, follow us. We always follow back. We always trying to get a little bit more active on Twitter. So if you follow along, thank you so much. I'll start including you in my little question of the day that I drop on Twitter. So thank you so much, guys, if you're connected on Twitter. And, of course, let's not forget we are streaming live on my favorite platform. Yes, I am biased, but I am streaming live on LinkedIn. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, guys, thank you so much as always. All the gratitude in the world for everybody. If you're not connected with me, there's tomorrow evening's guest host already joining along the show. That's going to be an interesting one. He's going to be live tomorrow evening as the guest host with his guest, the marvelous Karen Markle. So get ready for that tomorrow evening, and that'll be a night off for me. I love those. So thank you, Mr. Steve Sullivan. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, guys, drop it down in the comments. And then, of course, if you're not connected with me, send out an invitation. I always love to connect with new people and make new connections. And I try to answer all these on my own. So if I don't get to you right away, it's probably because I have quite a few that I'm trying to get to. So thank you so much if you're connecting with me on LinkedIn. So, all right, let's get started with this evening's guest. She is the founder of Unique and Inclusive Wellbeing. She's an experienced provider of training and consultancy specializing in mental health and the well-being in the workplace, which is very important, especially in these trying times that we're all going through in this pandemic. It is always crucial to make sure that you're checking up on your employees. So she also spends time in the community. She helps to support individuals lead a happy and healthier life through creativity, singing, and drama in particular. That's another interesting thing that we can talk into. And of course, she's combined her lived experience in mental health along with her many years in leadership positions and training in psychology and counseling. So, guys, do me a favor, all the way, of course, from the UK, help me welcome to the show, Miss Helen Ginman. Hey, Helen, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
I thank you for taking the time. And again, we had a conversation prior, of course, which I usually do with a lot of the guests before I bring them on. But one of the things that we really connected on and that I loved talking with you about was the fact that you specialize in not just in well-being, but in mental health, in the workplace, especially. So kind of walk us through a little bit of how you got started, interested in wanting to help people with their mental health. I know you do have experience in leadership and working in the corporate world, but walk us through why mental health was such a big topic for you that you wanted to actually go pursue it and help people, get better themselves.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I mean, I've suffered from poor mental health for a very long time, ever since I was the age of 11, which is quite some time ago now.
Yeah.
And I suffered from anxiety and panic attacks at the time. And it stopped me from being able to go out and socialize. I had to get my parents to take me to and from school because every time I tried to go on transport, I had a panic attack. I couldn't go around and stay at a friend's house. I used to play a lot of musical instruments and I'd go to all of the rehearsals, but when it came to kind of the concert dates, I wouldn't be able to go to any of those. So I suffered quite a lot from anxiety from an early age. And so I got treatment and I went through some kind of holistic therapy. So things like acupuncture, things like reflexology, a little bit more natural than perhaps you would normally get if you go to kind of the doctors.
Yeah.
And that helped me with my anxiety. But what left behind was, unfortunately, depression. And that's plagued me for a lot of my life. And I had to go through kind of a recovery process with that. But, very early on in the darkest of my times, I attempted to take my life. Obviously failed because here I am.
Yeah.
I attempted it. And it wasn't until kind of my late 20s where I went through kind of a recovery phase and a recovery process that brought me out of that depression. And depression hadn't always been there throughout my life, but it kind of came in and out at various times, depending on what was going on in my life at the time. And at the end of my recovery, I thought, there's so many people in the world that are afraid to, raise their hand and ask for help if they are struggling with their mental health. And I was one of those people, and I was working in the corporate world for a very long time. And I kind of had this great career that I was really forging ahead with, but in my private life was really struggling with my health. And I think for me, I recognize that there's a real big gap that exists between being able to acknowledge that perhaps we're not coping very well with our mental health and looking at how the workforce plays a part in that, how it contributes, how it supports, how it recognizes, how it prevents. And that's where I'm at now, is that, I'm trying to bridge that gap between people being able to go to work and say, I'm struggling, and ask for support so that they stay in work and they are successful.
Yeah. And, one of the, I'm sorry. But one of the things about, dealing with mental health, it's becoming a very big issue in regards to the workplace now. It's becoming more important to focus on the mental health wellness of a lot of employees, because again, for a lot of companies right now, they're having to operate remotely, right, to continue to operate. And then, for a lot of people, it is important to have that sort of kinetic touch and that connection with people, being able to, that for some people, it was not that saying that this is a bad thing, but it was kind of their escape from their home life, right? To go into the workplace, interact with coworkers, get enthralled in their work. And now, being that most of the companies now have gone remotely, your home has actually become your work environment. So for a lot of people, it was a struggle trying to figure that out. So has that been a big issue for you whenever you're dealing with clients and reaching out to individuals needing help?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, of course, so many companies are opting to work from home if they have the capability to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's great, but you're right. We should recognise that as humans, we want to have that physical connection. So whilst we can do things virtually, and that's great, at some point in the future, we're going to need to be thinking about how do we bring our teams back together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I argue that some form of flexibility in the workplace is really important because, it allows people to flex their work and personal life. It means that they might be able to get more family time if they're not commuting to work in the morning. So, there are benefits to flexible working, but I think it's about having a balance there. And certainly now I see clients in particular that are, the workforce are a little bit lonely. They're not able to, the novelty of working from home has worn off, because when it first started, everyone was like, wow, this is great. Let's get online. Let's do all this fun stuff on virtually. And now, that novelty is gone. So, they're trying to motivate staff. They're trying to think about, what the morale's like for their team. They're trying to bring their teams together when we're kind of still going through this strange time that we're in. And so I think it's really quite difficult for companies at the moment, more so than perhaps it ever has been.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to even look at going forward, right? Is seeing how a lot of people can operate from home now to still offer that flexibility as an option into the future. That's something I think should stay on the table for a lot of people, because again, you have people who have probably flourished in this environment. I mean,
yeah,
you might have people who are like really introverted in the way that they structure themselves and how they deal with people. So working in an environment where they're used to feel comfortable, like at home, you've seen their productivity and the things that they do kind of skyrocket, go up higher and higher. So I think it is an awesome thing to be, if it, like you said, if it's available in what you do with your company. That's really that's really important, because you can still, it shows that you can still get your task done. You can still be part of a team. You can still be part of an important project and still be relied on to get what needs to be done, and not have to, like you said, commute to work, do a lot of things, because that's always interesting to talk about, because for a lot of times it wasn't something that was so readily offered for a lot of companies, right? It was, hey, we need you to come into the office, we need to be here. And I think because of what COVID has shown us, that is something that needs to be continued. But again, like I said, for some people though, it is tough, especially people who are like extremely extroverted like I am. I love kinetic interaction. I love talking with people. I love the camaraderie of working inside of a team, or working with individuals, and having those kind of those moments where you can have a laugh with somebody over something that you guys are working on, or whatever it is. And I think right now it's still very tough to deal with, because here, well, I don't know over there, but here in America, it is like at a rapid pace where we are seeing uncontrollable numbers in the way that dealing with the virus, and in dealing with, of course, death as well. The people who are dying at a extremely high rate, and that's kind of scary to think about. And again, it goes back to people in dealing with mental health, because that weighs on a lot of people, right? I mean, thinking about it, for some people to even go out in the world and go, hey, man, I gotta go out and figure out how to deal with maintaining a good boundary for me, but also not worrying about so much about catching it and affecting other people, and going home and taking it home. I think it's for a lot of people, it's still an issue.
And that's anxiety. There's
yes.
that anxiety around,
and that's where I was headed.
What happens if I catch it? What happens if my friend catches it? What happens if my family member catches it? And there are obviously differences of opinions in terms of kind of the strategy that people take to try and protect us, right? So wear masks, don't wear masks, go out, don't go out, lock down, organizations, pubs and restaurants, don't lock them down, so there is this kind of mixed opinions that are all over in all of the countries, for that matter, and that creates a little bit of division in certain places, but it helps to fuel, I suppose, that level of anxiety and that fear, because if you want to go out and you want to go and do your shopping, but you don't want to come across somebody that's not going to be wearing a mask, ultimately that's going to heighten that feeling for you as an individual. And I think COVID-19 has really kind of pushed to the forefront how companies need to be thinking about the health and the well-being. If they weren't thinking about it before, the kind of realization of how important it is to kind of get your team through a crisis and a pandemic, of unprecedented proportions. If you're not doing anything for mental health and well-being, you need to wake up.
Yeah, right. And I think it's something that should be included in a lot of how we operate our day-to-day businesses. It's really important because, again, sometimes we stress a lot of other issues when we're talking about like the diversity and inclusion, right? Whenever you're talking about that, that's something that's really, they create departments for it. They want it to be such an important part of what the culture is. And I think that's the same thing that should be approached when you're talking about dealing with somebody's mental health, because sometimes the anxiety and stress that they feel comes a lot from their work and how they have to operate in a working environment. So it's kind of tough to, it's kind of tough to think that the company that I work for doesn't, yes, they want production. Yes, they want a lot of things completed, but I don't know if they really care enough about me to ask me, hey, what's going on? What's been affecting your work? Is there anything, because for a lot of companies, it's, hey, get whatever it is, get it out, work it out, and then keep going forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that easy, right?
No, and the kind of the pressures in the workplace come at lots of different angles, and I always think it's kind of the emotional pressure that companies can put on people, and they probably don't do it intentionally, right? They don't go out their way to intentionally put that pressure on people, but it's inadvertent. So if there isn't kind of that recognition of the diversity, if there isn't representation from all the different ethnicities, if there isn't equality, if we are kind of in an environment where people don't feel like they're being treated, if managers are talking disrespectfully, if the work pressures are so high that you feel that you're not able to do the job in the best way that you possibly can, if you don't feel valued, if you don't have that sense of belonging, these are all kind of emotional pressures, if you like, that will be placed on people at different times and for different reasons, depending on your own circumstances and how you're affected by those types of things. And it's a company's job to kind of recognize that diversity in different potential issues or concerns or feelings and emotions, and try to draw out of that a way to go forward with it.
Yeah. So have you done that before for any of your clients or companies that you've worked for, where you've developed a kind of a mental health wellness program and kind of brought it in and instilled it into the culture of how the company operates?
Yeah. So a lot of what I do is helping companies with their mental health program. So looking at what does their culture look like, feel like today, and how do we change that and adapt that? So, I'm an advocate of companies being able to better support people who suffer from poor mental health, because we want to keep people employed. Businesses want to keep people employed because it costs us money to recruit. If we're getting people that are absent, if we're getting people that are leaving, if we're having to re-recruit, it's costing us time and money. So businesses, it should be a requirement of them to try and keep staff. Now, in order to do that, we need to recognize that sometimes in life, people are going to go through different situations and different circumstances that are going to affect them, some of which may develop into mental illnesses. And that doesn't mean that people can't work. It doesn't affect, your capability to do your job. It doesn't change the training that you've had or the years experience that you had or your ability to communicate with people. It affects your capacity for a given period of time. For a short period of time, it affects your capacity to do the work, but certainly not your capability. So, I think it's really important that we have kind of that strategy in place that says we know what to do when someone says to us, I'm struggling. We look at what reasonable adjustments we can make for that particular person. Is it flexible working? Is it reduced hours? Is it working from home? Is it greater support for particular types of work that they're doing? It will depend on the person. And then the kind of the flip side of that is, what's the role that businesses play in contributing to the mental health crisis? So how do we prevent poor mental health in the workplace? So thinking about things like the workload, the work pressures, the way in which we communicate and engage with people, how we inspire them, how we motivate them, how do we do kind of those monthly performance reviews, how are we thinking about learning and development in the workplace? These are all things that tie into kind of our own mental health and creating that positive mental health. So a lot of kind of my focus is on how do we make businesses be part of the solution when it comes to poor mental health, and what can they do to help reduce it? And I always think it is totally within the control of organizations to positively influence what happens with mental health, particularly in the workplace, right? Mm-hmm. And that power that they have and the opportunity to create real positive change is phenomenal. And it's all within their control. It's not something that they have to necessarily go out and spend thousands upon thousands of pounds on, or dollars. They can absolutely do things and make changes in their own organization that can have a more positive effect.
Yeah, that's wonderful, right? I mean, and it's something that always, I love the fact that when companies do this, I mean, I think it really speaks about, one of the things I've been recently talking about is leadership, right? I mean, if the leadership really takes it to heart how they operate that way, I mean, I think it trickles down, right, with the employees as well, feeling the same way. And I think that's a really important factor whenever you're talking about this. So, one of the other interesting things is that, that kind of I was drawn to was the fact that you spend time also, well, I don't know now that COVID is around, but, you were working in the community and, you were helping others with their creativity, singing, and of course, drama. How did that manifest? Because I always love talking as well about the creative aspect of life. That's something that always draws my attention because I just love people who are creative, and I think it takes a special person to not only be creative but go out and help share their creativity with other people. So how did you get involved in doing that? I mean, before, of course, all of this hit.
Yeah. So I can't do anything in the community right now, which is absolute hell. I mean, I can. So it's really difficult. But I've always been musical. So from the age of 5, I learned to play the violin. Went on to things like piano and singing, and I still do a lot of singing now. And what I wanted to do is kind of create this space for people to be able to express themselves, perhaps in an alternative way to thinking like, okay, well, I have to sit here and I have to talk about my feelings and I have to kind of go over the difficult things that happen in my life. Whereas I wanted to give something to the community that says, come in and be a part of something perhaps completely different to what they normally would have done. So I created this community choir where people come along and they are able to sing the songs that I put together for them. And, they create new friendships. Singing, of course, is great for well-being. So, it's already kind of tying into those good things around promoting positive mental health. there's a thing called music therapy, so being able to kind of tune in to help and support people with mental illnesses. And some of the people that I work with in the community now have come and said, you know, I've really been struggling with my anxiety, and that's reduced now as a result of kind of coming to a choir. And all you're doing is providing an opportunity in a space for people to come together and do something a little bit different. So, you know, I do that. And then I joined an Amish Dramatic Society, I don't know, maybe when I was about 13 or something.
Yeah.
And I now I'm part of the kind of the committee that supports that. But we do things for the younger generation, which is about trying to improve self-confidence and self-esteem, and, you know, helping to feel a little bit more positive about yourself, because it can be a really challenging world, right? I mean, it's challenging for adults. It's tough for kids right now growing up in this world. So, you know, again, it gives people that space and an opportunity. And you know, a couple of the kids that originally started coming to the sessions wouldn't say boo to a goose, you know, wouldn't get up on stage, didn't want to talk in public in spaces. And over time, you know, are now centre stage, reading out lines, chatting with people that have, you know, it's such a powerful way, because it's not forcing people to sit down and say, look, why didn't you want to talk to people? Or why didn't you want to communicate with people? Or why are you so shy? You know, you're not directing it. You're giving them something to completely redirect their focus and attention into something that hopefully they enjoy. And as a result of that, you know, are able to kind of build their self-esteem and their confidence. And it's incredible to watch that, you know, the transformation in some of these people. And I feel very honoured to be a part, really, of that journey with them.
That's incredible, because I love that, because I think that, again, that goes beyond just saying about saying to somebody, I want to help. That's actually showing that you want to help. Again, help somebody open up, help somebody find what could end up being a passion in life for them that they didn't even know that they had.
Right.
And it's an amazing thing, because I've thought about that sort of thing myself. Of course, at this point, again, kind of like too little too late at this point to try to interact, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because that's what I mean when I tell people to go out and take action into the world. Is to do these sort of things, use your gifts and talents to go out there and share and connect and help teach other people. And again, I love that the fact that you're not only doing this for other people, but you're concentrating on the younger generation, because again, it is very difficult for a lot of them to get out of their shells, to come out of who they are as people, because again, for a lot of them, they grew up in a different environment than we did. They grew up in front of a screen. They grew up video games and texting and all these other things where human interaction wasn't an important factor to how they had to operate. You know, and
I remember when a time when I used to have to connect my internet through a cable. You know, I had to actually physically connect it, and it used to have that dial tone. So some of the kids today wouldn't have even been around when there was no internet. You know, for me, going out and playing with your friends was having a water fight and playing games outside. You know, whereas nowadays kids are, you know, more focused on kind of onto the iPads or to the technology or to playing the games. And there's pros and cons to those, of course there is, but you know, getting out and being a part of the community and interacting with other people, I mean, nothing beats it, right? Nothing beats it.
And again, that's such a key tool, because again, I see I've seen this before, where I see a group of young adults or young kids as well hanging out, and of course they might be in groups of 5 or 6, but all of them are looking down at their phones instead of sitting up, having a conversation with each other, really learning about, you know, themselves and lives and who they are as people and friends. And it's all done through, of course, text messaging and sending Snapchats and whatever else, how they communicate with everybody. And I've always been kind of like you, where to me, going out and playing with my friends was riding bikes and being out, enjoying each other's company, just doing stuff where you were all together, and it was you created all these moments where you know gosh, it gets hard to see that happen, and I see how it can happen. Believe me, I know. We're as adults getting used to that sort of connection. How kids are actually growing up, we're learning it ourselves. So it's been crazy, but again, I love the fact that you are still putting it out there into the world, because again, it is to me about impact and making an impact on somebody else's life and changing their perspective on again, like what you were talking about. They get to where they get comfortable again on center stage, talking things that they would have never imagined doing, because they're pushing who they are, as they're learning to push themselves as people, and knowing that their boundaries, or what they think their boundaries are, can be broken. And again, that goes back to learning a lot about yourself, and having a good mental health aspect on life. I think that's such an important thing that I stress to folks, and even me. I take the time to really focus on learning a lot about myself and mental health, because again, it's such an important factor in how we grow and develop as individuals, right? I mean, for some people, it's learning how to deal with anxiety, right? I mean, it's tough to see somebody. So how have you helped? How has it been for you dealing with individuals like that, who have a really hard time dealing with those kind of issues, dealing with real high anxiety and panic attacks? I mean, what are some of the things that you can recommend to somebody who might have these problems now, who might might want to at least start the process of learning about it and learning more about how to help curb and control some of the attacks that they have?
So I think, first and foremost, there is so much available to people. We don't always know what's available to us. And I think, partly that is a problem, for us as societies. We don't know what perhaps keeps us healthy. We don't know what resources are out there and available to us to be able to use and support us. And, how I might recover from, difficulties in my life or poor mental health or anxiety is going to be different to somebody else that's got a different experience, a different response. So, there are different approaches and different interventions that are needed depending on the person. And very early on in my business, I went into a company and I was doing a series of mindfulness sessions. Now, mindfulness is all about being kind of connected to the present moment. It doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody thinks it's a thing to do, and that's fine. Everyone's got their own opinion on it. But for this particular company, mindfulness was a good option, and we did maybe 4 sessions of 30 minutes. And anyone could kind of come in and join in the sessions, and they could try it and give it a go and see whether or not it worked. And I had a lady come in, and she said to me, I've read all the books about this. I've tried it and it doesn't work for me. And I said, well, let's give it a go. And at that moment, I knew something had affected her, or something was affecting her in her life, right? Because she'd obviously clearly read these books. So she's invested time in trying to find some form of intervention to help her. So we went through this mindfulness session. At the end of the session, I called her behind and I said, look, is everything all right? Are you okay? And she just broke down in absolute flood to tears and was saying, she was really unhappy in her life. Things had happened, 15 years prior that she just hadn't forgiven herself for, or forgiven her partner for. And, for those 15 years, she'd been carrying this huge weight with her. So we looked at what we could do to support her from a therapy perspective that was available within the company. But I said, look, come to my next mindfulness sessions. Let's keep trying, because sometimes you've got to practice these things. And then the second mindfulness session, I brought along some sunflowers. And the idea is you just focus on the sunflower and you're just connecting with what it looks like, what it smells like. And after that session, she said to me, no matter what happens in her life, no matter what difficulty she's facing, she just thinks now of this field of sunflowers, and it just makes her feel so much calmer. It doesn't take away what's gone on in her life. It doesn't take away those experiences. It doesn't take away how she felt 15 years ago. It hasn't taken away those 15 years that she suffered, right? So, we're not removing kind of that issue in her life. What we're doing is creating the space for her to be able to deal with it, and perhaps deal with it more productively than she has been doing previously. And it was such a powerful moment for me, that moment where you go, you've given somebody a tool that they can use, that can help them, that previously hadn't worked for them for whatever reason, and now does. And it was so simple, it's such a simple thing. But now, every time she has those moments where she's feeling anxious, she's getting, feeling like she's getting panicky, she's worried about certain things, getting upset, she pictures this field of sunflowers, and it just helps her calm down. Wow. And I think, how amazing is that you can give somebody that ability to do that. Now, I'm not doing anything that other people don't do, right? I'm not sort of a magical mindfulness person in that respect. But, for her at that given moment, it really worked. And I talk about it a lot, because I think that's something so simple that can have such a positive effect on people, and can break the cycle of somebody feeling so down all the time.
Yeah, that's incredible that she essentially anchored that feeling, right, to sunflowers. And what a wonderful, again, that's the power of our minds, right? Something, like you said, as simple as doing something like that can help her take her mind to that one special place where she feels absolutely calm and safe. And that's big time for some folks. That is crucial for some people, to be able to go to that spot in their minds whenever they really need it to help find focus or find whatever it is that they're needing in that moment, right? I love that. That's that's great though. And again, like you said, not every single technique is going to work for each person, but I think if you're really searching for what works for you, what works the best solution for you, I think you got to look at it at every angle out there. You got to really take the opportunity to learn how and what can help you find that peace and that calm, or whatever it is that you're searching for along your journey. For because I know I went through it with tapping. It was a sudden, instantaneous thing for me, and it really worked when I talk about resonating how I perceived a lot of things in my life. I mean, it really it was a shocking moment for me, because I never expected anything like that to really open me up and catch me where it took me to different levels of how I looked at my life. And I still I'm studying it more and more, because I loved what it did for me. In that moment, I haven't felt I have felt clarity that I haven't felt in a very long time. So it did so much for me in so many ways. It took me, and I've told people this before, it took me to my highest highs and my lowest lows. Mm-hmm. But it opened up something inside of me that had been stuck, protected, shelled. It was whatever it was. My mind went from being at this level to just going up and then down and up, but up. I've loved the journey since it's happened, because I've learned so much about myself.
And I think that's important, is that kind of self-discovery. And I think when you've had, knockbacks or setbacks, or, things that have happened in your life, when you go through those processes of clarity, when you get that clarity and you go through that recovery or that journey of kind of self-reflection, it can actually be really, really powerful for you as a person at the end of it. I mean, I know, having gone through what I've gone through in life, okay, I'd rather it hadn't happened, but actually it has given me so much in terms of experience and appreciation for so many different aspects. It's taught me how to be empathetic towards people. It showed me to help people. So I think, everybody that kind of goes through those moments like you has found, your journey quite an interesting one that takes you in different places.
It has. And like I said, it what works for one may not work for another. But like you said, it could be just the simplest thing, like it was for that woman. It helped her.
Yeah, I mean, when I want to talk about mental health in the workplace or well-being, there are so many different things. You could be physical activity is great for people, but not everybody wants to go out and run a marathon. So I can't run. I've tried and it just doesn't work. So for me, trying to run would be it negatively impacts how I feel. So I don't do it, right? So I don't force myself to do those things. But for other people, it will. And, doing weights or going to the gym or, going for a walk, whatever it is, or doing a bit of yoga in the morning, there'll be things that people do that are different, that play into what keeps them healthy. So, there's physical activity, there's learning and development, what we're doing to keep ourselves learning new things and discovering new things, and whether that's reading books or going on training courses or whatever it is, they all kind of tap into how we value ourselves and that importance that we place on ourselves. So there are going to be different things that affect people in different ways, and that's okay. And I think for businesses, it's really important that they kind of demonstrate the breadth of availability for people. So whilst it's not their job to keep people physically active, it's not a business's job. Actually, if they encourage people to be physically active, they're going to have more positive people in work. They're going to be happier. We know that the science tells us that people that are more physically active and are doing things are going to be more productive. So it's in their best interest too. But they don't have to decide that they're going to run a race every morning. It's not something that that it's in their interest to promote that kind of diversity and their accessibility to doing things and kind of leading that healthier life.
Exactly right. And I think that's why I love it when I see companies at least taking that route of instilling a program like that into the culture, because I think once it starts getting ingrained in the culture, you start seeing better results. You start seeing employees happier. You start seeing people. You start seeing them as people, not just as an employee. You start seeing who they are and connecting with them on a whole nother level. And I love that the fact that that's something that you concentrate on, because I think it's so important for a lot of people who might have issues that have never addressed their problems like this, right? So to go into a workplace where they concentrate on that sort of thing, that can be very eye-opening for a lot of individuals, So somebody says, I've never had anybody who's cared about me enough to ask these kind of questions, right? I mean, so instilling that in a culture, I think sometimes when you put that there, it's almost like another added benefit that can attract people.
Maya Angelou, I think Maya Angelou's quote is, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yes.
I love that quote, because if we want to affect positive change and we want to deliver greater results, or we want to make a difference to people, we have to focus on our feelings and how people feel. And if we want to drive positive things in businesses, and get productivity and drive greater results and all of those things that we know businesses want. We have to invest in the feelings and the emotions and recognize the fundamental core of what keeps us going as humans is that desire to be affected by how we're feeling. We want to feel valued. We want to feel like we belong. We want a voice. We have a voice. We want it to be heard. We want it to be recognized. And I think businesses play a huge part in kind of creating that platform and allowing people to be able to do that.
And yeah, and it's, again, that's one of the things where, when I see bigger companies actually taking the opportunity to do this, right, to put these kind of programs in place, I think it speaks volumes about what they really, how they really feel about their employees and what they want them to do, what they want to build as a culture. And I love like there's a company called VaynerX, Gary Vaynerchuk, and that's kind of a lot of the things that they really work and stress with a lot of their employees. It's just, man, they want to know who you are as a person, and then I can understand what the appeal is to want to go work for a company like that, right? Where they treat you like a person and not just hey, get this done and blah blah blah, and it's kind of like a cattle prod getting you in there.
Exactly. And from the business perspective, they get all the great benefits that you get when you invest in people, right? But they also kind of get that brand image. People talk about it. You're talking about it. You don't work there. You're talking about him, and you're talking about the image that he projects and his brand and that feeling. So we're talking about it and we're giving that airtime. And it also creates loyalty, yes. And even if people leave those companies, they're going to be talking about it and saying, actually, do you know what? When I worked in this company, it was phenomenal because I mattered. I felt like I mattered. And, on the flip side of that, we've got the person saying, okay, that people value me. People want to know how I am. People want to know my thoughts on things. And although they might not be able to change everything in a business, because we know that sometimes that's just not possible, but actually they're prepared to listen to me and they're prepared to give my opinion. And do you know what? When I'm struggling in my life and I'm worried about what that impact might have, I can say to my manager, look, I'm really struggling right now. Can you help me? And that's where we tap into, better support for those people that do suffer with poor mental health, and also thinking about how we prevent it, and I think that's incredible, the kind of the opportunity those businesses have.
Yeah. And one more thing before I go into the final question, because this is one of the little fun facts about you is the fact that you say you know how to play guitar, saxophone. And I know that you said you were musically inclined, but you seem to know that's a lot of instruments to be able to play. Because again, you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 different instruments, right? The piano, the violin, the saxophone, the guitar. I mean, is there anything else that you know how to?
I'm a singer, so and naturally that's what I do. I was professionally trained in singing, and although I do singing now in the community, I don't do singing professionally anymore. But yeah, I do like my music, and I do like, and actually during lockdown, I started learning a new song on the guitar every day. That was my kind of learning and development thing. I thought, you know what, I'm going to teach myself a new song every single day. So
wow, that's awesome.
Ones that I've
learned. That's awesome, though. I love that, because again, I love the creative person, because I think it is somebody that has somebody's creativity, the way they create and the way they share. It really speaks volumes about who they are as people. You see that it's an easy way to express happiness, our emotions, right?
Yeah. I mean, when we're kids, we are taught to play with things like Lego. We're taught to do painting. We go and draw around our hand and we paint it, and then we do our foot and we paint our foot and we stamp it on the ground, and all of those things we are trying to encourage creative play. And the reason why is because it helps youngsters to be able to express how they're feeling, right?
Yes.
Do model clay things or make candles or whatever it is. And what we're saying is that we recognize it's important at that age to be creatively playing, because it helps you to express how you're feeling and it helps you to deal with difficult emotions. And then we get to adults and we're like, we shouldn't do that anymore because we're too busy doing business stuff.
Right.
And actually, having that creativity is great for problem solving. It's great for dealing with your own internal conflict. It's great for being able to calm your own emotions down. It's great for dealing with things like depression and anxiety. And okay, yes, it's not the only thing that's going to make a difference. And we should recognize that. But actually, its power in really positively affecting people's lives, it can be incredible.
Yes, and that's that's why I, as a writer, I find it so fascinating whenever after I write, sometimes I feel so open and liberated.
Creative writing.
Creative writing, right? You sit there and you get it out there, and afterwards it's like a big breath of fresh air. You're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And it's such a way to, like you said, express your emotions, because again, that's how we were as kids, right? I mean, when you start seeing kids draw pictures of death and all these other things, that's the first thing that goes off in your mind. Okay, there's a major problem because something's being expressed there. You see it when we go, okay, wow, that's something to really pay attention to. Where, if you carried that same sort of thought process into adulthood, right? I think it would be a lot easier sometimes to read when people are expressing or having problems. It's because they'll be able to express it more openly. They would, whether it's in song, whether it's in word, whether it's in art, whether it's in all these other things. So that's why, to me, the creative process is just as fascinating as the mind.
Yeah, and I mean, as kids, we're taught to express ourselves and to wear our heart on our sleeve, and we speak our minds and we say what we're really thinking. And then as we get older, society tells us that we probably shouldn't think certain things in certain ways, and those feelings that we had, we probably shouldn't feel, and we should just get on and deal with those circumstances. And we don't really give anybody the strategies to be able to get on with those things. And we certainly do make it difficult for ourselves in life. But I totally agree with you. Having that kind of voice of creativity can help express those things. And I mean, we talked about creative writing, and there's loads of research now, and the science says how beneficial it can be to do creative writing and how good that can be for our mental health and well-being. And things like journaling, so writing, a journal, and you don't have to start it with Dear Diary, right? Those things are quite old-fashioned now. You can just sit there for 5 minutes and just write whatever's going on in your mind at the time, and that kind of connection from pen to paper can really kind of get that clarity in your mind. It can help to reduce those feelings. So the science tells us, time and time again, that some of the simplest things that we have available to us that doesn't cost us any money, it doesn't mean we have to put drugs in our system, can actually be really beneficial to our mental health.
Yeah, wonderful. So let me ask you now a question that I've asked all my guests that come on the show. And it is about life. It does have to deal with life, the end cycle of life, but here it goes. So when the book is said and done on Helen Ginman, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, and what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, tricky. I think I want to be remembered for making a difference, for helping people to realize that they don't have to sit in the darkness and battle with poor mental health, that they can find the light and they can find different ways to help support them. And I want to be part of preventing people taking their own life. Ultimately, that's the worst case scenario for someone that goes through poor mental health. That they feel that the only way to end their suffering and end their pain is to take their own life. And I want to make a difference to that, and that is what I want my legacy to be.
Man, beautiful. I love that. And it's, again, sometimes it is the simplest things in life that we know, that our experiences, that we can turn around and turn those into something that we want to strive to share and help change going forward in somebody else's life. So that's wonderful. I love that. I love that answer. So, all right, Helen, thank you so much for coming on the show, taking the time out of your evening. I know it's such a time difference, but I am so grateful for everything that we talked about this evening. I think it added a lot of value to a lot of people's lives and hopefully connected with a lot of folks. So guys, if you're watching, do me a favor. You can connect with Helen on LinkedIn, and I will pull the link up and put it down in the comments as well. Send her a connection request, man. She is a wonderful individual. Man, have a conversation with her. It could possibly change your life. And then go to her website, guys. Check her out at www.youandIwellbeing.co.uk. You can check out what she does and a lot of her services and what she does there. And again, thank you, Helen, so much for coming on the show. I do appreciate it, for taking the time out of your evening. And then everybody else who's been following along, commenting the whole time, as always, all the gratitude in the world, guys. You make this what it is and what we do here every evening so much fun. So, Helen, just sit tight. Everybody else, I will be back. Well, oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Don't get me to lying. I will not be here tomorrow evening. Steve Sullivan will be my guest host. He will be doing the show tomorrow. I will be taking the night off, technically directing, and just relaxing and watching a conversation just like everybody else. So I will be here tomorrow evening, just technically directing. He will be here hosting the show. I will be back Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. So I will see you guys Thursday evening. Y'all stay safe, stay positive. Peace, love, and harmony, guys. And we'll get through this. We'll get through this together. Good night, everybody.